today's mini lesson we're going to look at the sit and reach test. Now, the purpose of the sit and reach test is to assess the flexibility of the performer's hamstrings and lower back muscles. This test is valid because the greater the range of movement in the hamstrings and lower back, the greater the score, or the better the score a performer will achieve during the sit and reach test. The pre-test procedures for the sit and reach test are that the performer completes an adequate warm-up, especially completing static stretches of the hamstrings and lower back. This will ensure that they don't pull them or injure themselves during the sit and reach test. During this time, the assessor or the recorder of the person completing the test will probably talk through the performer as to what they need to do and what they can expect during the test. The method for completing the sit and reach test is that the performer should take their shoes off, they should sit themselves down with their knees together and ankles together, with the backs of their legs flat against the floor. Their feet should then be held at a 90-degree angle to the floor, and the bottom of them should be placed against the surface of the box which is placed in front of them. Their toes are going to be pointing upwards. Once here and the assessor is happy that their knees are on the floor and their legs are completely straight, the performer then needs to try and reach as far as they can over the top of the box and hold that position there for between 2 and 3 seconds. It's important that they're able to hold this position, otherwise they could potentially bounce, which would give an inaccurate reading of their flexibility. Once a performer has completed one measurement, they should return to a relaxed position and recover from their first attempt, and then complete 2 more so that the assessor can record these, average them out, and get one score to then use and compare against normative data. To complete this test, the assessor will need the specialist box, a pen and paper. The benefits of completing the sit and reach test to assess flexibility is it's very simple, it's quick and can be completed anywhere. It's also a very popular and well-known fitness test, which means that the normative data tables produced are very accurate because they've stood the test of time. All an assessor needs to do to tell the performer how well they've done is take their average score and compare it against the normative data tables according to their age and gender. This will then give them the result of below, at or above average. Some negatives of the test, however, is that it does require specialist equipment. In order to use the normative data table to determine the eventual result, the assessor and the performer do need to be using the appropriate equipment. It's not just any box and any distance measured, it has to be a specific piece of equipment. A second negative is that a performer is unlikely to be able to perform this by themselves because they won't be able to see the distance they've reached. They will require assistance or an assessor to look at the distance that they're reaching. And lastly, the sit and reach test is limited as it only assesses the flexibility of the hamstrings and lower back muscles. For some performers, these muscles won't be essential for their sport, therefore it wouldn't be necessary to actually assess the flexibility of them. So, to summarise the sit and reach test, it is a fitness test aimed at testing the flexibility of the hamstrings and the lower back. A warm-up and stretching should be completed beforehand, and the performer needs to be sat down with their legs against the floor, knees and ankles together. They then attempt to reach over the top of a box 3 separate times, holding each stretch for between 2 and 3 seconds. The assessor then averages this score and compares it to normative data tables to determine if they are below, at or above average. It's a very simple test and can be completed anywhere with little equipment, and as it's a popular test, we know that the normative data produced is very accurate. However, even though there is only little equipment required, it is required to be specialist. Assistance is required in order to record the data, and the test is limited because it only assesses the flexibility of the hamstrings and the lower back, not any other muscle group. So that's the sit and reach test. I hope you found that mini lesson useful. If you did, then feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can be kept updated with all the video and content that we're going to be bringing you. Alternatively, if you want to learn more about our PE Tutor services or our teacher learning resources, then do visit us at thepetutor.com and you can reach out to one of our team, and I hope to see or hear from you.